Patrick Henry once said, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." He did not say, "Give me liberty or give me safety." That is because gun control leads to control. Hello and welcome to My Loudest Thoughts. Today we're going to be talking about gun control and why I think it ultimately leads to the New World Order. But overall on this channel, we talk about cryptids, government conspiracies, all the crazy nonsensical things you could think about, paranormal activity, UFOs, whatever. We just like to have fun with it. Some of it's real, some of it's not. I wear a tinfoil hat, so you shouldn't take me too seriously. Now, let's get into the video. Okay, so why would I say that gun control leads to control? Well, let's take a look at some nations that have gun control, really strict gun control, all right, or have had. Nazi Germany had really strict gun control. Communist China still has really strict gun control. Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, Iraq, Iran, Haiti, and Cuba. Now, do any of those sound like places that you want to live? Because I sure as shit don't want to live there, right? We all know what Nazi Germany turned into. We all know about the death camps, about the Holocaust, about the horror that happened there. Haiti currently is burning to the ground, and gang members are on the street literally cooking and eating people. Cuba had a whole hell of a lot of problems, and I still don't think that those people are too happy. North Korea sounds like an absolute shithole. Venezuela is a failed state, in my opinion, anyway. And this all leads to the fact that gun control equals control. And let's take a look at a leader who understood that very, very well. This was Mao, the guy who started the Communist Party of China. All political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Communist Party must command all the guns. That way, no guns can ever be used to command the party. Now, let's take a look at a different mindset, in the mindset that helped build America. This is our Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, these are two completely different mindsets because they wanted two completely different outcomes. China wanted control, so they implemented massive amounts of gun control. America wanted freedom, so they implemented massive amounts of gun freedom in the very beginning. And now we have a situation where there is a massive call for gun control here in America. So let's take a look at why I think the numbers that everyone knows are absolutely overblown. First and foremost, those numbers for especially the mass shootings are just completely ridiculous because, one, they count any situation where 4 or more people were injured or involved. Okay, some say involved, some are injured only. But the problem with that is that it counts gang violence, it counts robberies, it counts all of these absolutely absurd things that are definitely not what most Americans think of when they think of a mass shooting. When Americans think of the mass shooting, they think of the Las Vegas shooting, they think of Columbine, they think of Virginia Tech, right? They think of all these other things. They don't think about 4 guys who went in to rob a grocery store or a diamond store or whatever and gunshots were fired. That's not what they're thinking of. They don't think of a situation where a couple of gang members got together to buy or sell drugs and somebody got pissed off and started popping shots. All right, that's not what they're thinking of. Now, I took this from the USCCA, these statistics from the USCCA that we're about to get into, but first I want to clarify that I would love to associate with the USCCA. That does not mean that the USCCA would like to associate with me. So, if we take a look at this right here, mass public shootings by weapon type from 1998 to 2019. Now, the reason this is important is because most of the gun control bills that are being pushed forward today are about assault rifles, right? But when we look at these statistics, 56% of these mass shootings have been with a handgun only. Only 13% of them have been done with a rifle. And remember, we're counting mass shootings only, which would be, I believe, the most tilted toward rifle use. and yet still 56% are done with handguns only. Then you have shotgun only at 4%, which seems kind of odd to me, but stats don't lie, right? Then you have handgun and rifle are at 12%, handgun and shotgun at 12%, and handgun, shotgun, and rifle is only 3%. Now, whenever you take a look at that, then you come over and you look at U.S. firearm homicides by the numbers. Okay, so if you look at gun violence homicides that were committed by a family member using a firearm, you come to a number of 61%. When you look at firearm homicides committed by a stranger, it's 24%, and when you look at committed by a intimate partner, you have a number of 14%. Mass shootings account for 1/10 of a percent. 1/10 of a percent. However, that is what we are citing whenever we say that we need to ban assault weapons. Now, when we look at the U.S. gun and murder rate, we find that number one, the number is declining slightly, and I will say very slightly. I would actually say it's negligible overall. But we find that over half of these are not murders. Over half of the gun death in America is suicide. Okay? Now, this leads me to a very important thing. The solution to gun violence, actually just all violence and most crime in America, is not gun control, which only leads to control. Instead, it is fix the culture, fix the economy. Desperate people do desperate shit. If you take away their desperation, they won't do screwed up shit to start with. Okay? They won't have the desire to do it. They do these crazy, terrible things because the culture has been destroyed, the economy has been destroyed, and they just don't know how to move on. That's what happens. These people are deranged, but they are deranged because the culture has turned against them, at least in their own opinions. The economy is absolutely trashed. They don't know what to do with their lives, and so they take it out on other innocent people, which is absolutely absurd, of course. But the point is that doing more gun control will only make these people feel more and more desperate, and that is why every time there is a call for gun control or a massive change in culture, we have a uptick in shootings. Every single time, okay? You look at it whenever we had the gay rights movement, all of a sudden we had more shootings. When we had the trans movement, there was more shootings. When the economy collapsed in 2008, there were more shootings. When the economy collapsed again, there were more shootings. When COVID happened, I think there were even more shootings then, right? So if you make people desperate, you change their lives dramatically in ways that they don't understand how to process, you have problems. That's what happens. Now, whenever we look at some of these countries like Nazi Germany, right? We all know what happened in Nazi Germany. He took away the guns and then he committed the Holocaust. Absolutely horrible, absolutely terrible. But this was done because he had the control of gun control. Haiti, right now, is burning to the ground and people are literally eating other human beings on the street. They have massive amounts of gun control. In fact, according to Barons.com, Haiti has no firearms manufacturing, no ammunition manufacturing, and UN sanctions against, or restrictions against importing arms into Haiti. And yet the gangs have had no problem obtaining a lot of firearms and taking over the country, okay? In Cuba, we all know what happened there, right? Or if you don't, you can look it up. But Cuba was an absolute disaster, and I think it still is to this day. Venezuela is a failed state. Once again, massive amounts of gun control. North Korea is an absolute horror fest for the entire world. They have massive amounts of gun control. Now, whenever you look at all of these things, you start to come to some crazy realizations, right? you start to come to the World Economic Forum, supports these ideas. The WHO supports these ideas. In fact, the WHO and the WEF are both really big proponents of something that the WHO has put forward at NATO, right? Which is the pandemic treaty. Now, the pandemic treaty would allow the WHO, the World Health Organization, to declare gun violence as a world health emergency. And therefore, they would be able to violate our Second Amendment as well as any other rights that any other country has given their citizens towards firearms under the guise of public safety. It would also allow for massive amounts of surveillance, curfews, all kinds of crazy nonsense. But that's not the point. The point is that the pandemic treaty can be used in this case. And if you're not aware of the pandemic treaty, you need to look into it. There's a guy I'll link in the description. I think his name is Dr. Campbell. He talks about the WHO and what they have going on. He's been very vocal about the pandemic treaty and why it's a problem. He goes in depth with it. He prints it out. He goes through it. I really like his videos, although I will say they'll put you to sleep. So, but at the end of the day, he's going over real documentation. That's not going to be super exciting. It's just kind of a part of it, right? But he is a doctor. He can break it down, and he goes through it very well. Now, whenever we look at the ATF, which I have a massive problem with, we wonder why. Why would a guy like me say that the ATF is a part of the New World Order, and why would I have such a problem with them, right? Well, I would cite something called Ruby Ridge. Now, in 1992, I think it was, Ruby Ridge was an incident where a guy who was kind of a piece of shit, he was kind of friendly with the Aryan nations, which, once again, kind of a piece of shit. He decided that, the ATF decided that they were going to start doing surveillance on him. And so one of the things that they did was they sent an agent to him and had that agent then asked Randy Weaver if he would manufacture some short-barreled shotguns for him. And he offered money to him and whatever, and Randy Weaver at the time really needed money. So he decided that, yes, I will cut down these shotguns and I will sell them to you. So he did that. Now, when Randy Weaver cut down these shotguns and he sold them to this ATF agent, the ATF decided that they were going to go ahead and turn that in and everything, and they were going to open up a court case on him. Now, that's where the problem started. The real problem started, because what happened was Randy Weaver was notified of a court date that he had, but the problem was that the date he was notified of was a month after the actual court date, right? And so it's kind of complicated. You should look into it yourself. But basically, he thought that the court date was a month after it actually was, so he never showed up to court. When he failed to appear, the ATF took that as he was never going to appear. He would not turn himself in. And therefore, they decided that they were going to go in full camouflage and set up cameras and start surveilling his property. Now, that's questionable at best, but what happened next is even more questionable. Eventually, one of the family members found one of the cameras, and that drove the family's paranoia absolutely through the roof. And then a few days later, I think a few days, maybe a few weeks, anyway, later on, Randy Weaver's son, Sammy Weaver, and a friend were walking down one of the trails on Ruby Ridge. And they were walking with their dog, Stryker. Now, Stryker saw one of the ATF agents dressed in full camouflage. He didn't know who he was, so he took off running, right? And he took off running at this ATF agent. Now, this agent decided that the best course of action would be to shoot the dog. Now, the problem here is that Sammy Weaver just saw a guy, some random guy in full camouflage tactical gear, stand up and shoot his dog. So he decided he was going to take shots back at this guy. He fired some shots back. The ATF agent returned fire, shot him, I believe, in the shoulder, maybe the arm, something like that. So Sammy Weaver decided he was going to run off. He was going to run back to the house. At this point, he got shot in the back and dropped dead right then and there. So now the ATF has not announced themselves whatsoever. The Weavers have no idea who these people are on the property. They just know that their dog and their son are dead, and some guys in camouflage gear have done this to them. And they don't know why this has happened. They don't know who these people are. They just know that they are being attacked. So they take a bunch of different actions and blah, 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 blah. You know, once again, I respect this case. I would actually like to cover this case, but that's not today. So anyway, later on, a sniper from the FBI, I think it was, who was lied to about the situation by the ATF. They were told, the FBI was told that the Weavers just opened fire on the ATF, not that the ATF had actually killed their dog and that's why they opened fire, and then so on and so forth. They were just told that the Weavers had opened fire on them. So when the ATF showed up, they showed up in force and they were ready to do something about it, right? So now the sniper here, I think, was from the FBI. He might have been from the ATF. But anyway, he was taking shots at Randy Weaver and he ended up killing his wife. Now, at this point, the ATF and the FBI still have not identified themselves. They still have not tried to talk to Randy Weaver. They have not tried to talk to anyone in the house. They have just killed his dog, his son, and his wife, and they still haven't even told him who the hell they are or why they're there. Then finally, they send a robot up to the house with a phone on it, right? So that they can talk to one another, right? Finally. However, the robot apparently had a shotgun pointed at the phone, so Randy Weaver refused to pick it up. All right? So anyway, eventually the situation was resolved, and Randy Weaver was tried in court for failing to appear. The short-barreled shotgun thing was thrown out of court because the ATF cannot ask you to make a short-barreled rifle and then arrest you for doing the thing that they asked you to do, so on and so forth. But then a year later, Waco, Texas happens, right? And once again, the ATF is investigating this time a group of religious people who were called the Branch Davidians. Now, the Branch Davidians were stockpiling weapons. Okay, that's absolutely true. However, the Branch Davidians were also selling weapons, which makes sense why they would stockpile them, right? It's called an inventory. Every gun store has one. Anyway, they were selling and manufacturing firearms, which they had a license to do. Now, they had sent, the ATF had questioned the Branch Davidians about their firearms and whatnots, and the Branch Davidians, along with the sheriff, had invited the ATF over to the compound to check their inventory, check their paperwork, check all their documents, do all of that kind of stuff. And the ATF just absolutely refused. Instead, they got a house across the road and they started surveilling them. Now, once again, the ATF had an informant that was going into the compound and checking things out. Now, he had found some receivers, and the ATF decided that these receivers were going to be modified to become fully automatic weapons. Now, the crazy thing about that is that the Branch Davidians had never created a fully automatic rifle, so why the hell would they start now? But the ATF decided that's what they were going to do, so by God, we got to deal with it. They went in there, no one actually knows who shot first, no one knows who started what, but in the end, the ATF ended up killing a bunch of people there. The compound was burnt down. The ATF and the law enforcement involved, which I believe also included the FBI, completely destroyed the crime scene. And so to this day, we still don't really have any clue what in the fuck happened at Waco, Texas. What we do know is a group of religious people that, at least as far as I can tell, just wanted to be left alone, were shot at, murdered, and arrested for things that they really just weren't a problem. And at the end of the day, in both of these cases, what really pisses me off is that the ATF was there over tax stamps. Okay? Because here's the deal. A short-barreled shotgun is not illegal. Okay? It's actually not illegal to saw off the barrel of a shotgun. It is only illegal if you don't notify and get approval from the ATF along with paying a $200 tax stamp. If you pay that $200 tax stamp and the ATF approves it, then yeah, you can make that barrel as short as you want. Which is absolutely absurd to think that, they were there over a $200 tax stamp, and so they killed a bunch of people over it in both of these cases, right? So, once again, gun control equals control, because the gun control measures that were signed, these both dealt with the NFA. So the NFA led to the control of the ATF being able to go in and do the crazy fucked up shit that they did in both Ruby Ridge and Waco, Texas. Now, whenever you take a look at the FBI is a massive problem in America, and they've been guilty of a lot of things, including Operation Midnight Climax, MK Ultra, and all kinds of other things, right? But recently, they declassified something that they call their Domestic Terrorism Symbols Guide. Now, some of these I do kind of agree with. However, for the most part, they're off their rocker, and they need to knock it the fuck off. Okay? So, whenever we take a look at their anarchism, violent extremism, they have the traditional anarchy symbol, right? The circle with the A. Looks really cool. Lots of punk bands have used it. Lots of heavy metal bands have used it. The media's used it. Whatever. It just looks really fucking cool. And yet, now if you use that symbol, well, you might get put on a list. The black cat. So, if you're a witch, I'm sorry, but the black cat, now you're a violent extremist. If you just have a black cat, maybe you're an extremist. I don't know. It's on their guide for domestic terrorism symbols. Now, there is one that I agree with here 100%, and that is Antifa. Antifa's on here, and I would argue that, yeah, 100% FBI, you got that one right. They do belong on the list of violent domestic extremism. However, then we come to page number 2. Now, page number 2 has symbols that are just words, right? Phrases. And so, right here we have be ungovernable. Now, Patrick Henry said, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Sounds to me like Patrick Henry was trying to be pretty ungovernable. I would say that most of our forefathers, if not all of them, were pretty ungovernable. Nazis go home and smash fascism. Once again, I cite Nazi Germany. I'm pretty sure that Nazi Germany was pretty bad. Therefore, I think that fascism is pretty bad, and Nazis are pretty bad. So I think that both of those are completely fine. And once again, the FBI has put them on their list of violent extremists. Now, when we get to the militia violent extremism, this gets really irritating to me. First off, let's talk about the Oath Keepers and the 3%ers. Now, the Oath Keepers, I know that there's some questions about and whatever, but I don't see where they've ever crossed the line to being violent extremists. I don't remember them burning cities down like I do Antifa or the Black Lives Matter movement, right? But they're on this list. The 3%ers, particularly, there was an incident called Bundy Ranch in, I think it was Oregon, maybe it was Washington State, and I forget what year, but fairly recently, it's within my memory. But these guys went into an abandoned government building, and they held up in there. They were heavily armed, but they never shot anybody. They never committed any acts of violence that I'm aware of. The 3%er Club actually showed up there and acted as a mediator between the FBI, the ATF, the other law enforcement that was involved, including the National Guard, and the people held up in this building, right? And they actually ended that situation peacefully. However, the 3%ers ended up on the list of violent extremism. Now, when I say that it was ended peacefully, that doesn't mean that it was 100% peaceful. There was one guy who was shot and killed, and in my opinion, he made a mistake that gave the police every reason to shoot at him. There are questions about that. There are arguments about that. And I recently had one of these arguments. But at the end of the day, it calls into question whether or not they had the right to shoot. But I think they did. Others think they don't. But at least it was questionable. And everyone else in the building left peacefully and no incident, right? No major incident anyway. Now, whenever we take a look at the symbols, the actual symbolism, we have the Punisher skull. So if you're a fan of the Punisher, I guess that you are a domestic terrorist. We have the 2A movement. Okay, so if you support the Second Amendment, then I guess you're a violent extremist. So I guess I'm a violent extremist according to the FBI. We have the blacked out American flag, right? The blacked out American flag was created to indicate that no quarter shall be given, because at the start of the Revolutionary War, one of the reasons that it was started, and you can actually see it cited in the Declaration of Independence, was that the British military, the British government had decided that if the British military shows up at your house, you are absolutely required by law of the king to house and feed the British military that is taking over your land and taking your rights away. And people had a problem with this. Therefore, the black flag was created to indicate no quarter shall be given. Then you have the Gadsden flag, and the one that pisses me off the absolute most, the Betsy Ross flag. Now, the Betsy Ross flag was the first American flag accepted by the United States of America. AKA, it was the first symbol of America. And now, if you have one of those flags, well, by God, you must be a militia violent extremist. Okay? So, the FBI is a part of the New World Order because they are pushing forward all of this. Okay? They are pushing forward all of this. MK Ultra was probably a part of the New World Order's plan, so on and so forth. These are all really, really bad ideas because gun control leads to control. NATO is being used currently to consolidate the power of the world in one central place, because that gives the New World Order, through the WEF and the WHO, the modern incarnations of the New World Order, one place that they have to take over instead of several countries that they have to take over, right? So all of this comes to a place, and all of this is going on, and currently the world is absolutely on fire, right? We have conflict in Ukraine and Russia. We have conflict in Palestine and Israel. We have riots in New York. We have currently the National Guard in New York is in the subways doing random bag checks on the citizens of New York because there's been so much violence in the subways. And instead of, I don't know, like locking people up and being hard on crime, they're just going to put rifles, guys with rifles in the subway and make them check bags for weapons, which is absurd because every video I've seen of the violence in New York subways, the guys don't have the weapons in bags because that would make it harder to get to. So I don't see where it can do any good. But anyways, so that's all going on. Haiti is literally cooking people on the street. There either is or was a civil war in Ecuador. Germany, they have a bunch of people that are pissed off doing all kinds of political protests and whatnots. I think Canada is become a communist state. Russia's in a civil war. China's threatening Taiwan. You know, the whole world is either currently in conflict or threatening conflict, and our southern border is wide open. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And at the end of the day, like I said, in reality, if you really want to stop gun violence here in America, what you do is you fix the economy and you fix the culture, okay? If you go look at these statistics and time them with economic downfall and massive societal culture changes, you will find an uptick in shootings, and violence and crime and all of that. Why? Because desperate people do desperate things. Okay, that's the way that this works. If you decide that you're going to take away the guns, all that you're going to do is take the guns away from law-abiding citizens, and the criminals will continue to have them. So once again, gun control equals control. Now, if you like that phrase and you would like that on a t-shirt or a hoodie, well, guess what? I just so happen to make those t-shirts and those hoodies. They're on my Teespring, and I will be trying to figure out how to link those down below somehow. From what I understand, I can integrate it pretty well. But anyway, now, once again, guys, I wear a tinfoil hat. You probably shouldn't take me all that seriously. However, I do believe pretty much all of this. This is absolutely absurd, and at the end of the day, when you have massive amounts of gun control, you allow for the consolidation of power, because the one group of people that will never give up their guns is the government itself, the people in power. Okay, think about it. Gun control does not apply to the people that are protecting our politicians anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter how strict the gun laws are. I guarantee the guy guarding the president or the prime minister or the dictator or whoever's in charge are carrying fully automatic weapons. Okay, that's done for a reason. That's done because they work. That's how you create actual safety. So if you're worried about school shootings, rather than trying to take the guns off of the street, you should be more worried about putting guns in your school. And I know that sounds crazy, but something I want to really stop and think about is the idea of gun safety, right? So I'm a massive proponent of gun safety and teaching it early, okay? I believe that if you start teaching people gun safety when they are in grade school, say around 4th or 5th grade or something like that, these statistics all go down. Every one of them goes down, because one thing you will find within the gun community is they just don't have negligent discharges. They don't have accidents. They don't shoot their friend in the face like Dick Cheney. They don't do these things. Why? Because they are massive proponents of gun safety. That is what you find in the gun community. Guys who spend time around guns are very, very, very safe with guns. Where you find the accidents and stuff is people who don't understand gun safety or don't take it seriously. And I would cite all the videos on Twitter and everywhere else of gang members and people in the inner city and stuff pointing their guns in every which direction and whatnot without a care in the world. They got their finger on the trigger and so on and so forth. Or all the videos of the Middle East where they're shooting guns up in the air because they don't realize that bullets come down, I guess, and then accidentally pop their friend in the head because they limp-wristed it because they're doing really stupid actions to start with. If you just take gun safety seriously, then we don't need gun control in the first place. If you fix the economy and you fix the culture, you don't have people in the mindset that they want to do mass shootings in the first place. You don't have situations where people want to commit in the first place. And therefore, you don't need to worry about handguns, rifles, shotguns, assault rifles, machine guns even, right? In my personal opinion, we should start teaching gun safety actually around like 3rd grade, because I want it to be so ingrained in their brain they can't forget it. But we can argue about that stuff. But I think that we need to teach gun safety at a very early age, and we need to repeal the NFA, and we need to put machine guns back into everyone's home. Because I feel that the best way to protect American sovereignty is to make the old phrase, "there will be a rifle behind every blade of grass," the most terrifying thing that an invader could ever hear. Because not only do they know it's true, but they know the weapon on the other side of that blade of grass is every bit as powerful and effective as the one that they are carrying, if not more. That is the way that we protect this nation. That is the way that we protect our children. And that is the way that we protect each other. Now, with that being said, I invite you to join the tinfoil army. And if you made it this far in the video, please hit the like, the share, subscribe button, all of those things, but more importantly, thank you, because I'm telling you right now, starting a new YouTube channel, I think I got 9 views on my last video, and it took me several hours to create. And, it's not disheartening, because I do this for fun, but at the same time, it would be really cool if, it got some more play in the world. So anyway, gun control equals control. Don't cave in to the New World Order. The WEF and the WHO are not there to keep you safe. They are not there for your best interest, and neither is the FBI or the ATF.